Thank you, everyone, for joining us from across the world, right here on Control TV Front Row Politics. I am Gimbo Umar. Today, we're going to be focusing on the conservative Kemi Badenoch, who emerged as the leader of the party. It is an opposition party in the United Kingdom. But today, a member of the Lincoln Inn in London, Dr. Daniel Bwala, joins us from the UK. Many thanks indeed, Daniel, for joining us at this time. We are going to begin with looking at what Badenoch believes in. She is Nigerian, a Yoruba, a tribe with very respectable high customs and tradition as a Yoruba daughter here in Nigeria. But she has made sweeping statements. An extract from her speech says that first, she believes in personal responsibility. That's what she says. She says, my only 20% of what happens to you is down to others. 80% is down to your actions and your choices. What is this meaning? She also says that this is why I know that the government cannot solve all our problems, and nor should it even try to. What do you make of this, Daniel? I believe in personal responsibilities as the first of three beliefs by Badenoch.
Right. So, good evening and thank you for having me. And by extension to your viewers, you need to understand the background of Kemi Badenoch. The Conservative Party here in the UK is akin to the Republican Party in the United States. They have certain principles. I think more than 75% of the principles that they all believe in and they advocate, which is that when you hear her talk about personal responsibility, it falls within the prism of the value and principles of the Conservative Party, that there shouldn't be government presence in everything that people do. There shouldn't be over government regulation. And there are certain welfarist policies that the Labour Party, for example, are implementing. To them, it comes down to the issue of government deciding your life. So you will also come to other rights that the Republicans in the US or the conservative in the UK believe that is theirs and that government shouldn't decide for them. Another area is, for example, family values. In the US, you remember they just concluded election. Part of the issues that form the campaign, I won't say rhetoric, but the campaign talking point was that the Republicans believe that government is even budging into their homes to destroy family values by creating all this gender transition, medical attention and treatment. So when she talk about personal responsibility, it's still part of it. Government cannot come and teach us what we believe in and what we do. You can also relate it to, for example, free market economy, where businesses thrive on the basis of competition, and that government should not try to, intervene or interfere in the affairs of government and in the way government in the affairs of business and the way business is operated. So whether she talked about personal responsibility, she talked about personal value, she talked about assimilation, all of this talking point that she's building on our core right and in fact far right belief system that form the basis and the value of that political party is very similar to the Republican parties in the US.
We'll get to that, Dan. But the second of her beliefs, let's just also look at that before we. I believe that will establish a link between what we're looking at and the implications of a Badenoch government and what it means for Nigeria. Second, I believe in citizenship, which she said is not just about having a passport. This is just quoting her verbatimly. A country belongs to its citizens. It is nothing without them, vividly spoken by Kemi, the leader of the Conservatives. Doesn't believe in where she comes from, which is here in Nigeria. Haven't made this kind of statement that suggests a sever ties with her homeland here in Nigeria. Can you help us reconcile her thoughts
So
as
there are
to
two things.
she believing in citizenship and then choosing the UK instead?
Yes, exactly. So her point is clear that citizenship is not just acquisition of passport, which is what the far right or the conservative and especially the far right in the conservative party believe in. It boils down to the issue of immigration, and it is a war between the concept of assimilation and integration. So she is saying that she believes in citizenship that is based on assimilation rather than citizenship that is anchored on integration. And that's why she's saying that if it is just about passport, then somebody can come to the UK, go through the regulatory processes, acquire the passport, but his allegiance may be to somewhere, his country where it comes from. Same goes with his cultural belief, values, and everything. That's why she talked about some people, they claim to be British, but they are participating with foreign terrorist organization, to hurt the British people. Then she also talked about people who acquire the passport but have not been able to assimilate the culture, the value, the belief system, and the way things work for the British people. So they have the passport by being citizens, but they are actually not citizens in the sense of culture, in the sense of value. So, and that's how she tried to detach herself from Nigeria. That although she has acquired the passport, she's a British citizen. But the reason why she's turning her back away from Nigeria is because it's not just about having the passport, but then your allegiance and everything is in your home country, but that she says spirit, soul, and body. So the conservative believe that citizenship affects your everything and promotes the concept of assimilation. You assimilate everything that the British people live for and stand by because a nation is defined by its identity rather than integration. The concept of integration is put by the progressives. And that is to say that we have our diversity, but we integrate together, we find our common strength and common interests, and then we build, which is also anchored to anchored or related to globalism or globalization, that the world is a global village and that we come from different parts of the world. We can integrate in one place, we can stay together, and we can push. They are trying to promote what they call nationalism, identity of the people. So there are certain identity traits that are relative to the people, to the British people. So in one of our interviews, I heard when they say she should give an example of certain cultural values that are superior to the other. She says she doesn't believe in a culture or a value system that come to the UK to say women cannot speak. She's speaking to the Middle East, where there is this disparity between men and women and then the difference and all that. Then she also talked about the British people stand on certain principles, which is, for example, fundamental human right. And that fundamental right promotes the idea of equality of men and women, promotes the idea of having your own thoughts or as opposed to government, and you will not be heard because you differ from the government. So essentially, her principle is anchored on not just the right, the right principle, but the deep far right.
As an opposition in the UK, Kemi is determined to become the prime minister in the next elections. I'm just wondering, looking at the optics, and of course, some people, Nigeria doesn't need.
It will be outlandish if you keep a statement like that because you see, the way the world works now with the globalization, we all need each other, right? So it will be under it will be, I don't know the word to use in qualifying, but for Nigeria to say cannot, because in fact it is UK who should say that. But there is a lot of what happened in Nigeria and what, I'll give you a good example. In the fight against corruption, most of our learning, training, and discipline are borrowed from the NCA, the National Crimes Agency. Our people still go to the FBI, but they have lots of cooperation with the NCA in the fight against insecurity. They talk about Commonwealth. We're members of the Commonwealth nation. And virtually our legal system, most of our administrative system, even our political party system, the same. We are at some point, we're even operating the parliamentary system before we change to presidential. But we have a lot in common. We have what we call the shared value and shared interest. So Nigeria needs UK as much as the United Kingdom needs Nigeria. But with respect to Kemi as a person, unless there is a scandal that forces her to resign before the next election, or something happens that impugn on her character, integrity, or her past, that will then affect her integrity going forward. But if Kemi continues in this trajectory, pushing the narrative that is supported by the far right, there is nothing that will stop Kemi from becoming the prime minister. The reason is because, like I told you, populism that is all over the world, that is the in thing. If you go to every part of the world, it's very easy to be populist in your ideology and you have a lot of people, because populism is departure from government that is doing everything possible to integrate with the global community, where you have compromise, you have to compromise in this area, you have to help people. For example, The far right, there's this commentator that even classify her as a white supremacist in dark skin. Some of the values that she's advocating and pushing with ferocity, if these same principles were to be pushed by a white man, it would clearly be classified as racism, because we've come a long way. But she's doing that because a black woman, or even if you're a black man, you can't call a black man a racist because he's bringing out issues that affect probably the interests of the black or other multicultural or multiracial community. So that's why they would love it. So what I would have, if I was a white man, what I would have pushed, and then the world would look at me as primitive, trying to go back, and now I have a black person to do it. We know that we'll have all the confidence to give her all the funding, all the support, because we know with how we can achieve more within a short time. If you're in America, for example, or you follow policies in America, there is another black lady by name Candace Owens. Candace Owens is the public
Absolutely.
communicator. That lady is being supported very strongly by the far right in the US, because her ideas again are those ideas that promote white supremacists, and she is saying that it is not white supremacy in the context of what she was advocating. So she get all the support, and that's why I believe that if Kemi continues in that, for the United Kingdom, it will give her the leverage, it will give her the popularity and the rest. But in terms of whether those values that she's pushing will survive globalism in the real sense of the word, I think it will be difficult. And you know why? Because Donald Trump, who is also a Republican and a conservative in the US, emerging with similar values as a US president, you will discover that in the build up to the next election in the United Kingdom, he is likely to give more of his support to people like Kemi Badenoch because of those far right principles and policies that she advocates.
But what troubles a lot of Nigerians right now is that you know we know that the home front is not very tidy, and we have to do some work on it, which I
Mhm,
believe that this administration is doing. But she is of the thoughts that previous administrations in and out have reduced Nigeria to almost nothing.
mhm, mhm.
Because she's able to be.
Hello, right. So I didn't hear the later part of what you were saying. The only part I heard before the glitch, as for the dreams, well, there is sense what she's saying can be classified as half truth. So I put it this way: if President Obama were to have gone to Kenya and run for politics, probably Obama would not have seen the light of the day in Kenya. So the point in which she's saying that she identifies more with the United Kingdom because of opportunities, she's right. Because, for example, in the United Kingdom, the system run in such a way that ideas thrive, right? But in Africa, a lot of other factors play in bringing the ideas to fore. That's why you don't see the brightest of the brightest emerging as senators or governors, and in some cases president, because of the way our local politics, is played. There are cultures, and this is comes down again to the issue of the value and the culture you talked about. So the culture of the United Kingdom that has been built over hundreds of years ago in terms of democratic values cannot be compared with a Nigeria that is less than 100 years in accepting the concept of free democracy. Now, the reason she's identifying more with the UK is because already her path is shining. She's about to be the most influential woman in the free world. Because in America, Kamala Harris just contested and she couldn't break the glass ceiling. She got to be the candidate of the party, which is the leader of the party, but she didn't win election. So Kemi is already at par with her. Kemi, because their system here is that the leader of the party going into election will be the one that will stand for the post of the prime minister. And that is exactly what is happening here. So she may be right in the sense of saying that opportunities are opening more for her here, therefore she will identify. And as she identify with the United Kingdom or turn her back from Nigeria does not change her citizenship because she's a citizen by birth. It is not citizen by naturalization. So I can understand what applied. Although I'm disappointed that she's not able to promote this fact of her root,
Apologies,
as
Daniel. For a
unique.
second, I just lost my connection, but go ahead, please.
Right. So I'm saying that I can understand what applied, saying that in the UK she has had the opportunity because it's very true that if probably she were to run in Nigeria, she probably may not have secured even the ticket for governorship in a state, not to talk of presidential, election where she now becomes the leader of the major opposition party in the free world, except for the US. So partly she's right, but the part that I'm a bit disappointed with her is that you don't have to throw your historic homeland into the bush to impress the father. This is the thing. If she were to come from the Labour Party, she can't, promote that because the Labour Party, which is an integration-based party, your story sells more when you're able to tell the world you came from Africa, you ran here, you couldn't have opportunity, and the rest, because there is this crave for people who can embrace opportunities and achieve. That's why Obama succeeded when he wrote a book about the dream of my father, talking about his history, where the father came from. That story sells more in a progressive party, but it hardly survives in a conservative party because in conservatism, the ideals and the principles are anchored on certain supremacy of certain individuals over the other. So they have found in her a worthy candidate to push that narrative. And I can understand why she's doing that. The minute Kemi go a bit to the center, she's going to lose a lot of support. She may not go anywhere. So rather, she will want to even go far right, even to the extreme right, in order to to galvanize the support of the British people in the real sense of the word, the conservatives, and then expect to see how she can break the glass ceiling. But I know for a fact that if she continue in this trajectory of feeding into the sentiments of the far right, coming election, she's going to win. But again, permit me to say this, Gemba Uma. Last week, she had her first prime minister's question, where she challenged the prime minister. She did well because it was like a honeymoon, where she was bashing him on how their party, the Labour Party, thought that Donald Trump was not going to win. They were saying all kinds of derogatory statement about him. But the dust settled. And this morning, today, in the prime minister's question, he bashed her because most of the questions she was asking, he classified those questions as fantasy questions.
Yes, my apologies again.
Right.
But I'm just wondering, will Nigeria get the
I'm afraid that whatever support we are getting now will reduce. I'm also afraid that whatever opportunities that we have will be reduced. For example, her policy on immigration is one that will further reduce the number of people that can migrate from Nigeria to the United Kingdom, whether you're coming by through highly skilled, you're coming through study, or whatever way you want to come. This is anchored on our policy because it's about promoting their own people. That's number one. And Nigeria got that exchange from this type of migration and immigration, where people who leave the country, even if there is, you call it a brain drain, but their returns to the country in terms of what do they call it? Annual remittances also help the economy of Nigeria. That's one. In terms of cooperation against war against terrorism, yes, that one you will get the support because the conservatives they put action to their words. You remember Barack Obama, they have a bringing Buhari, but they didn't give him the weapons that he needed to fight because they were bringing all these concepts of human rights, sometimes are rights that in your society they are not acceptable. But when Donald Trump came, he gave Buhari every weapon Buhari needed as long as he could pay for it. So that's one thing about conservative. So Nigeria will benefit in the war against insecurity, but when it comes to economic activities, the trade relationship will be such that it will benefit more of the United Kingdom than of Nigeria. So Nigeria is more likely, in my view, I may be wrong, to profit from a relationship with the Labour Party than with the Conservative. irrespective of whether it is a woman, man, Kemi, or a white woman.
Interesting, Daniel. Let's compare realms of our international politics. Uh, were you surprised to see Donald Trump win the swing states in the U.S. elections? Just to broaden the scope of this discussion just a bit.
Yeah, I was surprised because I actually thought, based on the polling and then the talking point and the campaigns, that Kamala Harris was at least going to win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. The reason is this: the greater number of Latinos in Pennsylvania decide elections, and the Latinos by default are members of the Democratic Party. So as the race got very close to the election, remember there were one or two gaps from Donald Trump. In their last meeting in New York, in Madison Square, that comedian said some things about Puerto Rico, which riled up the Latino base in her favor. So I thought she was going to win Pennsylvania. I thought she was going to win Michigan because Michigan has a large population of the Muslims and the population of Africans in those areas. So I thought that that was going to help because black people by default again are democratic people. Then of course Wisconsin is traditionally a blue state. But so I said I'm surprised because this state that I thought she was going to take and even contest in North Carolina, contest in Nevada, contest in but is it no, not Minnesota, because Minnesota this time around was not classified as a swing. I thought she was going to
In
contest in.
Michigan?
I mentioned Michigan and Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Then of course you have Nevada, North Carolina, Georgia, right? Because there are blacks in when you see in Atlanta, there are quite a number of black people there. But now, when we have a post-mortem of what happened, we realize why Trump succeeded. Like, for example, the last polling that came after the election, who showed that he made strides in all Democratic districts across the United States of America. Meanwhile, the Democrats, who have the large number of college, educated people, they moved away from the rural areas and got concentrated in one place. So what he did was he pounced on those places where the college graduates moved away from. Then I also thought that she was going to get many states in the swing because of this idea of this Roe versus Wade, the abortion concept, because it was selling when she started. But I think she missed it at some point because she measured her point on just two things. One, she talked about the abortion, and then two, that democracy is under threat. Meanwhile, there was an initial polling that said that the most important thing that bothers the mind of the American people, one is economy, two, immigration. On both, especially on the economy, Biden has achieved to an extent, but they couldn't push the achievement of Biden as a force. Because if you look at it, but America is one of those fewest countries in the G7 that didn't have much problem economically, but he couldn't push that because they tend to think that the Republicans own economy, right? Meanwhile, Donald Trump didn't do anything supernatural
Button,
economy-wise when he
Daniel.
came.
My apologies. If I may button,
Right.
do you think that the two wars under the Biden administration, I mean, those wars that came up during the Biden administration, that is the Palestinian-Israeli war as well as the Russian-Ukraine wars, do you think that that was a costly card to play during the elections that
One,
made Kamala Harris ultimately lose that election?
Yes, one was costly, the other one didn't matter, right? For example, the war between Russia and Ukraine didn't matter to the people. The Republicans are only saying that you are sending more of our money, our taxpayers' money, to Ukraine, and there is no success in the fight, and that Zelensky is not agreeing to some basic thing he needed to agree. So those ones are not very much an issue to the American people. But the war between Israel and the Palestine, that one affected them because a majority of the people who are traditionally Democrats, they come from those areas. And their thought is that Biden was one emboldening Netanyahu in this fight. He will talk, but he will not put his word. In fact, when it comes to backing, he will give all the arms and all the support. Remember when he's putting the naval ship, as soon as he hears that Iran or one other country was going to enter into that war, whether it's the Hezbollah. So that one cost them because I remember that House of Representative members like that is Talib is there, Then there is this lady. They call them, there's a name they classify them, those girls that were pushing for, they criticize the war. Even Bernie Sanders criticized heavily that Biden was not doing enough to protect the Palestine. So that cost the Democrats, because that was the base of the Democrats. But Donald Trump continued to, fuel the embers of war with Netanyahu, because he believed that those traditional Republicans, those who believe in the far right policies in America, they believe in the protection and the right of Israel. So he wasn't losing, because he understood his base and their extremes and was feeding into their extremes. But these ones that believe in integration, the globalists, you're talking about globalization, but here you are watching how Palestine as a country comes under heavy attack, when in fact Gaza and the Hezbollahs, the Hamas, who were predominantly in Gaza, were the problem of Israel, but the entire Palestine suffered. So that thing affected. I believe that thing affected her.
Do you think that President Donald Trump is going to stop this war because he's made
No, it, he's not known to be one that stopped the war on equality. His idea of stop the war is let the strong person finish whatever he's doing with the weaker one. You remember what he said he was going to tell Netanyahu, even during the campaign, that he was going to tell Netanyahu to finish what he's doing fast and come out, meaning that you are giving him all the encouragement. Remember, some of the pushback that he's getting at the moment were pushback based on other countries of the world's intervention. So America is not in a hurry to allow him to do what he's doing. But Donald Trump said, finish what you're doing and go. And look at the guy he nominated for ambassador, Mr. Huckabee, former governor Huckabee. That person's idea of Israel is that there is no any country like Palestine. That's the person he's sending as U.S. ambassador. So that gives you the picture of his thinking. Then at the same time, with respect to Russia and Ukraine, you have heard him saying that he will end that war in one day. And his idea of ending in one way is call Zelensky and say, concede these places that Russia want and let's have peace. But if you insist, I'm not going to fund you. So this is his idea of he will end the war, is that he's going to allow the strong person to finish whatever he's doing, while the weak person will be forced to concede for the purpose of peace. So his type of settlement is not an equitable settlement. And he has a history.
throw it straight to you. The Conservative Party leader now, Kemi
Mhm.
Badenoch. Do you think that she stands a chance?
Yes. Look, with respect to the America, the it will be easy for us to say, no, it doesn't matter, a woman can emerge. But we have now two case studies. In the case of Hillary, she won the popular vote and she came short in the electoral college. Probably she has done things differently. And also, if James Comey did not come out with his finding about her participation in the war in Benghazi, maybe she would have also won the electoral college. And she was a white woman, so she had less defect on her. In the case of Kamala Harris, remember that her base, which are the black communities, historically there is this misogynistic, mentality of the blacks, which is reflected in our culture. A man is seen as dominant master, the woman is servant. You see, even in music, hip hop music, and some of these, they objectify women. So there is this unconscious bias against women. And unfortunately, those demographics are in the Democrats. And it played out in this election because polls came out reflecting that Donald Trump made some giant strides in the black community, giant stride in the Latino community. So that affected that. I think that with a better strategy, better messaging, a woman can emerge as American president. The fact that we've not had that doesn't mean there can never be. And I don't think that there is any code or agreement somewhere that a woman should not be. After all, if you look at this election, the establishment supported Kamala Harris, but she did not win. The difference between that and the United Kingdom is that, especially among the two political parties, so that your question can apply to Labour Party. Labour Party have not had the benefit of having women emerging as leaders of the party. But the conservative have had Margaret Thatcher, they had Theresa May, they had Liz Truss, and now you have Kemi Badenoch. So there's also a history to show that they are open to those ideas that women can. And the record of Margaret Thatcher being the firm, strong, you know, gave them the belief that a woman can even do better than men. Because the only person that you can
Absolutely.
equate to Margaret Thatcher in terms of achievement is Tony Blair, right? That you can say, okay, he came close. But other than that, what do you call it? Margaret Thatcher did so much. So right now, the pundits are beginning to say Kemi Badenoch is modeled after Margaret Thatcher. In fact, I read somewhere today where it says Kemi Badenoch is the second coming of Margaret Thatcher. So
Okay, we'll be watching very closely to see how that plays out. If Badenoch is going to be the next UK Prime Minister. But just to come to a close, as our time is running out now, Daniel, uh, you are in the UK. If you are to be in the presence of the UK Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch, what would you say to her to change her mind on her stance about Nigeria?
I would tell her that she shouldn't be afraid. She has already identified with the deep conservative values of the far right in the UK. She has gone deeper than them in advocating for that, and she has been unapologetic about that. In fact, she has carved a niche for herself there. So she didn't need to completely throw her historic homeland under the bus to please the far right. The point is made, the principles have been pushed, and everybody will know that if she becomes prime minister tomorrow, she's not going to automatically turn away from those principles to accord special privileges to Africa. But when when Barack Obama won the election, the blacks thought that it was going to bring a strong revolution in terms of opportunities for the black. But go and check history. Barack Obama's administration did not help the black as much as Donald Trump did. Yet Barack Obama was a black man. There is this psychological thinking that when you are a black man, you emerge in a largely white community as a leader, you think that you need to go extra mile to disenfranchise your people to prove you are fair. So that is what she is trying to do. She's trying to detach herself from Nigeria because if she continue to attach and relate and make references to Nigeria and talk about the glorification of Nigeria, she's afraid that the Labour Party people are now going to link her to what they, in their own way, classify as the values in Nigeria in terms of saying corruption or bad governance and the rest. Imagine they ask her in the build-up to their leadership election. They ask her a funny question whether she has had drugs in the past, whether she smoked Igbo in the past. So this is how their society, this is how their society is. So if I were to be face to face with her, I would tell her, I would say, Sister Kemi, you are doing well for the conservative. I have differences with you on many issues, but I respect your right to say what you're doing. And if that leads to your emergence, then good for the confidence of the women in Nigeria to believe that they can achieve more. But I will urge her, you do not have to throw your country under the bus to appeal to a demographics that you have already won to yourself.
That's a good place to let it rest. I most sincerely thank you, Dr. Daniel Bwala, a member of the Lincoln Inn in London, for always gracing us with your presence and your thoughts on
Thank
every
you.
topic that we look at. That hopefully you'll be back here in Nigeria, just so we can cement the broken edges
Yeah.
together again and ensure that the people who have the, what do you call it now, the Japa syndrome,
Mm.
look back in to build Nigeria again. Many
Correct.
thanks indeed, Daniel. And to
Thank you.
everyone who's been a part of this show, I want to thank you so much indeed for joining us here in Front Row Politics here on Control TV. I am Gimba Umar, and we're signing out. Bye for now.
Bye.